الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين ولا عدوان إلا على الظالمين وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله ولي الصالحين وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله إمام الخلق والمرسلين صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reward you all for coming. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make this gathering a gathering from the gatherings of Jannah. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make everything we do for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and make this a pathway to Jannah. Allahumma ameen. Khwani, tonight we'll begin a new series bi'idhnillah azza wa jal, and it's only for 4 lectures. However, these 4 lectures are an introduction to 4 great men from the history of the Ummah. And these men, Ikhwani, were very unique men. Men that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has not only bestowed knowledge upon them, but also bestowed love, affection, rahmah, sincerity, and many other beautiful qualities which we'll cover bi'idhnillah azza wa jal. Khwani, I'm finding it a bit challenging to look left or right. Can you guys just help me out a bit here, please? Tafadhal, admu shway, get closer, please. Jazakumullah khair. Inshallah, it's a wide mosque, and when I do 180 degrees, I'm going to lose my neck soon. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has blessed this ummah with many knowledgeable men throughout the history of Islam. However, only a few of them really stood out to have massive impact on the ummah of Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Bi'idhnillah azza wa jal, we'll be covering the heads of the madahib, the main 4 schools of thought or schools of fiqh within the Islamic history. Al-Imam Abu Hanifa rahimahullah, Al-Imam Malik rahimahullah, Al-Imam Al-Shafi'i, and Ahmad bin Hanbal rahimahullah, over 4 weeks. So tonight we'll talk about Abu Hanifa bi'idhnillah azza wa jal, then Al-Imam Malik, and so on and so forth. And the plan is, Ikhwani, is not to give you everything about these great men, because it is impossible in less than 45 minutes to give you all that. What I'll be doing bi'idhnillah azza wa jal is attempting to grab a rose from every one of their gardens, because by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, these men are oceans of knowledge, and I'm going to attempt to grab like a piece from every part of their knowledge bi'idhnillah azza wa jal. We are talking about Al-Imam Abu Hanifa rahimahullah. And Ikhwani, and by way of introduction, by the way, this man was not an Arab. And this is important for us to note. Al-Imam Abu Hanifa rahimahullah originally is not an Arab. His parents, or his grandparents, come from the city of Kabul, which I believe is in Afghanistan, and they migrated by choice or by force to other parts of the world until his parents settled in a place called Al-Kufa in Iraq. And Ikhwani, there's an important message here. Islam is not for Arabs. Yes, the Quran came down on an Arab prophet in an Arabic language, delivered initially to Arabs. But the religion of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has no boundaries. And no Arab has any shame whatsoever to follow the madhab, to follow the school of thought of a man who's a non-Arab. So long that this man has knowledge, has taqwa, has iman, has what it takes to be able to deliver the knowledge the way that Allah wants it to be delivered, we take it. So long that this person is doing it for the sake of Allah on the path of Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, there is no issue in following the madhab. His name is Abu Hanifa. His kunya is Abu Hanifa. His name is An-Nu'man ibn Thabit bin Zuta al-Farisi. So his name has the word Farisi in it. Farisi means Persian. Okay? Today, people, when they say Persian, they mean Iranian. And Iranians these days, when I interact with them, whether for work or da'wah or whatever, they rarely say we're from Iran. They say we're Persian. It's a bit more classier in their eyes. Ikhwani, Persia back then is not Persia today. Persia back then used to include wide lands, including Afghanistan, including parts of Turkmenistan, a big land. Today it's restricted to Iran and some other parts. Okay, so once again we say he's originally not an Arab, and there's no shame in that. In fact, there is an honor in that. for the Arabs and the non-Arabs, that they are cohering and coercing in the religion of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to spread the knowledge. There's an interesting backstory to the birth of Abu Hanifa, and in fact to the marriage between the father of Abu Hanifa and the mother of Abu Hanifa. So the narration says that the father of Abu Hanifa, rahimahullah, was a very pious man. A young man who feared Allah, who loved Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And once he was walking past a jidar, like a wall of some sort, and there was like a fruit tree. And the tree had its fruits dangling outside the jidar, outside the fence, whether it's a garden or a house or of some sort. So you can imagine, young man walking, he sees a tree, he sees fruits dangling in front of him outside the fence of the house or the garden. Not sure what was going through his mind, he grabs one of the fruits and takes a few bites and continues to walk. Okay? Not realizing that he has taken something that doesn't belong to him. So he went, grabbed the fruit, went and found the entry to this great garden, knocked on the door, then went to the owner of the garden and said, "Oh, uncle, I ate a few bites from this fruit. It was dangling outside the fence. It was in the way, and forgive me, it was a mistake," etc. So the father, or the owner of the garden, he looked to you and said, "I don't forgive you." So he told him, "Uncle, I'll buy it from you. What is it worth?" He said, "I don't want to sell it to you. You ate from my fruit." He told him, "But I need to sort this out. I need to resolve this. I took from your haqq. I need to give you your haqq. I need to sort this out." So he said, "No. The only way I'll ever forgive you is that if you marry my daughter." The man said, "La ilaha illallah. I'm here to talk to you about, I took a few bites from a fruit. I'm not here proposing to your daughter." He told him, just to add more sort of spice to the mix, he said, "My daughter is blind, deaf and dumb." Deaf, she can't hear. Blind, obviously she can't see. And dumb, mute, she can't speak. So then I said, "La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah." I took a couple of bites of the fruit. Now I'm stuck with a woman who can't see, can't hear, can't talk for the rest of my life. He said, "Uncle, please, let me just, I'll pay you whatever you want. I'll do anything." He said, "No. The only way I'll forgive you is that if you marry my daughter." The man said, "La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah." This is the father of Abu Hanifa. He said, "La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah." I'll only do it so you could, so I could redeem myself, so I could pay for the couple of bites that I took from this fruit. The night of the wedding comes. The father of Abu Hanifa enters. He finds one of the most beautiful women that ever existed on the face of the earth. So he told her, "Assalamu alaikum. I'm looking for a mute, a deaf, a blind woman. Have you seen her?" She told him, "Are you talking about the daughter of so-and-so?" He said, "Yes, I married her. Where is she? Let's get this over and done with. Let me hold her so I could take her to her." She told him, "I am her." He told her, "But I was told she's blind." She said, "I am blind from seeing anything haram." He told her, "But I was told she's mute." She said, I could only speak the haqq, I could only speak truth, I could only speak goodness, I could only speak. He said, "But she's deaf. I could only hear good things. The moment there's something not proper or not good being said, I'll get up and leave." So what a ni'mah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bestowed on this young man for the fact that he feared Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He married her and they produced this young man from a pious household, a very pious household, the house of piety, the house of Iman, the house of taqwa, comes Abu Hanifa, rahimahu Allah. This man, ikhwani, comes from a very religious family, also comes from a very successful family. So his dad had a merchant shop where they used to sell silks and clothes and, garments, etc. in the markets. And this young man, Abu Hanifa, rahimahullah, he started working with his father whilst memorizing Quran. However, he did not pay too much attention to fiqh. Okay, so it was standard there. You'd memorize the Quran and learn it, etc. He memorized it very quickly. He understood it. He would revise it, and he connected with the words of Allah. But due to the family business back then being the silk merchants, he just got involved in that. And before you know it, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blessed him. He became very successful. He asked his dad to, renovate a few things, decorate a few things, and his dad was willing and gave him some hand, and he proceeded with that, ikhwani. And he was able, by the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then by his hard work and his extreme intelligence. Abu Hanifa rahimahullah was one of the most intelligent men, ikhwani. Intelligent, very smart, high IQ, call it what you call it. This man was blessed with so much intelligence. Very smart, very cluey, very clear, very sharp as a man, as a Muslim, as a businessman, as a pious man, as a mu'min, as a son, as a father, as a husband. He was a very smart man and a smart operator. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had blessed him with so much. And as one day he was walking, going to the shops, to go to his dad's shop so he could work, a scholar by the name Ash-Sha'bi was sitting. And he notices Abu Hanifa. So imagine, how we're all sitting here noticing each other. And you notice a kid at the back, a kid at the front, somebody walking up, somebody walking. You notice things. Back then, obviously, they didn't have, phones that, that occupied them all the time. They didn't have all their devices. They really were pretty much just occupied by remembrance of Allah, ilm, Quran, jihad, etc. And they'll be more vigilant of the surroundings. So Imam Al-Sha'bi rahimahullah realized this young man is special. So he called him, told him, come. So Imam Abu Hanifa, out of respect, he went to this great scholar. Said, what can I do for you, a scholar? So he told him, إِلَى مَنْ تَخْتَلِفْ? Who do you go to gain knowledge from? So Imam Abu Hanifa, he was honest. He said, I'm not gaining knowledge at the moment. I memorize the Quran, but I'm not actually gaining knowledge. أَخْتَلِفُ إِلَى السُّوقِ? I'll go to the markets and I'll help my dad in his shop. So he told him, Imam Shabi told him, I see in you intelligence, enthusiasm, strength, power, clearness of mind that the market will not satisfy it, will not quench your thirst, will not look after it for you. I suggest that you go and add knowledge to it so that you could satisfy this urge, this hunger, this energy, this intelligence, this mind of yours. And he left him. Khwani, would you believe it? That those few words fueled a young man at that age, he was about 17, 18, to go and gain knowledge, and go and spread knowledge, and make his madhab one of the strongest and biggest and most widespread madhab in the Muslim world throughout the history of mankind. Till today, al-madhab al-Hanafi, the Hanafi school of thought, is the largest, most practiced school of thought. When we talk about the whole of East Asia, India, Pakistan, Afghanistan, the Turkmenistan, the Turkish Empire, the Iraq today, Jordan, parts of Palestine, Lebanon, some parts of Al-Khalij, the Gulf at the moment, some parts of Africa, many parts of Russia, etc. Widespread, ikhwani. The West, in the Western world, in Australia, a lot of the mashayikh that you see walking around, including myself, has studied on the fiqh of Abu Hanifa al-Nu'man. Okay, why is that, ikhwani? First of all, there's knowledge which was structured, and we'll talk about the structure that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has allowed him and his companions. And he had a very unique way of setting out the school of thought that he orchestrated. But also I believe, and many scholars believe, that it's due to his piety and due to the sacrifices that he did in the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which we will see. Few words from a man, few words from a scholar towards a young man, triggered. I'm not going to say millions or billions, maybe trillions of good deeds throughout the history of mankind. Few words, ikhwani. My advice to myself and to everyone listening and watching, choose your words carefully. Wallahi, you could say a few words to your son, to your daughter, to your brother, to your sister, with sincerity. They'll go become the next alim, the next mujahid, the next hafiz, the next da'i, the next, one of the soldiers of the Mahdi. Ikhwani, we're at the crossroads of time. We're at a very critical time in the history of mankind. Today, Ikhwani, you can be amongst the influences of the next generation of Muslims. Naam. And he even said, فوقع في قلبي من قوله فتركت الاختلاف إلى السوق وأخذت في العلم فنفعني الله بقوله. Allah benefited me through his advice, through his words, through this is Imam Abu Hanifa rahimahullah saying about Imam Al-Sha'bi, that he gave me this advice and it affected me. So I reduced going to the markets and I started to go to the circles of knowledge. Now, Abu Hanifa rahimahullah, ikhwani, went through a process of elimination as to which type of knowledge he should gain. Ikhwani, this is not a normal man. Many people, and I've seen many students of knowledge and I've interacted with them, whether in Australia, whether abroad, in universities where mashayikh are produced, etc. Wallahi, it's chalk and cheese between some of them. And I'm not questioning sincerity here. We're talking about the quality of the man, the quality of the heart, the quality of the mind, the soul, the intentions. I sat down, I'll never forget this gathering with, in one of the Muslim countries, and we were starting a 3-year course. And the course is designed to give people the ability to give fatwa after the end of the course. And people were asking, what are the job opportunities? I still remember. People were asking, how much money can I make from getting this course? And these aren't just normal people. These are people who are mashayikh and du'at, etc. And they're saying, okay, once I get your degree, what can I do with it? Where can I work? Will Ayofi accept it? Will the Islamic banks accept it? And I'm thinking, is this your intention? You're here asking what money you're going to make from this course? And I'm not saying all of them were like that, but there were some that were like that. And I'm not here to, wal'iyadu billah, bag them out. Some of them had financial strife, some of them had difficulties, some of them obviously have big families to support, etc. But it is concerning what the intentions were. Ikhwani, the intentions were very different between people. Abu Hanifa rahimahullah went through a process of elimination and asked, what type of knowledge should I seek? So they told him you could either teach kids Quran. So he asked, what's the end of it? He said, they told him you start teaching kids Quran, and then all these little kids will come recite on you and you correct them, etc. He said, okay, what else is there? Then they told him there's poetry. He said, what's poetry? They told him you start learning poetry and then you become a good poet. And then if you like somebody, you say good poetry about him. So he'll like you and he'll send you gifts. And if somebody is not good to you, you say bad poetry about him. So it's like social influencers today, yeah? If a social influencer today goes on Google Eats or Google and puts a bad review on your shop or on your Uber or on whatever, your business goes downhill. Very similar to that was poetry. So Abu Hanifa said, no, what else is there? So he went through the sciences of ulum, al-fiqh, Al-Quran, Al-Hadith, etc., etc. And then he decided that his best contribution to the Ummah of Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam, he could add it through fiqh. And this is the pathway that he took. This doesn't mean that he wasn't a scholar in hadith, because he was a muhaddith. This doesn't mean that he didn't have the Quran as a science. He was a hafiz and a person who memorized the Quran from one of the strongest asanid at his time. This doesn't mean that he wasn't a poet or ikhwan. It doesn't mean that he didn't have those. He had all those, but his specialty was al-fiqh al-Islami. Compare that, ikhwani, to the world that we live in today. Today, people attend a course for a couple of hours, for 3 hours or 4 hours on a topic, yeah? It's a course about wudu and tahara, and they start giving fatwa about zakat. Or he attends an online workshop about how to perform hajj, because he's going hajj and he's giving lectures about jihad. We need to be mindful about what we do. If we gain knowledge in a special area, share it, there's no problem, but do not speak without knowledge. Do not speak without knowledge. Abu Hanifa rahimahullah specialized in fiqh, and that was the majority of the works that he produced. It didn't mean that he didn't give other works, but that was the specialty that this man passed on. Who did he study under? He studied under many people. However, there was a special man, a man by the name of Hamad, a scholar, that Abdullah ibn Umar radiallahu anhu found him once at the end of a battle. So you could imagine at the end of a battle, army is fighting, and then, dead bodies, captives, people run away from the battle. So he found a little boy at the end of the battle. So he didn't really, he looks like a Persian, non-Arab boy. He took him in. Abdullah ibn Umar looked after him, raised him. Jazakallah khair. Abdullah ibn Umar looked after him, raised him, taught him, spent on him, raised him like one of his own children, to the point that this young man, Hamad, became one of the greatest scholars of his time. Can you imagine? This man, he found a child, he took him, he raised him, he looked after him, he invested in him his time, his money, his effort, and he produced a young man that taught Abu Hanifa. Abu Hanifa, Ikhwani, did not attend Hamad only. He attended many others, but he stuck to Hamad, his teacher. Guess for how long? For 18 years. 8 years. Today, we read a book for half an hour, and we're like, all right, let me go on Facebook and start arguing with people, yeah? Today, we watch a TikTok video, and we're ready to argue with people, with the Mufti and Anik and Afik and all these people about moon sighting, yeah? Today, we watch a documentary for 35 minutes, and we are ready to give fatwa on which chicken is halal and which chicken is haram. Where, mashallah. Imam Abu Hanifa stuck by Hamad, his teacher, and that's just one of his teachers, for 18 years. After 10 years, he entered the masjid. And just to give you an idea of how Hamad was teaching, Hamad was teaching in the mosque of Al-Kufa, similar to this setup. And after 10 years, Abu Hanifa entered the mosque, and he was very popular. Very, very popular. We'll talk about his characteristics soon. He was a very popular man, very well known, pious, etc. Roughly at the age of 30, he said to himself, he entered the masjid, he said, you know what? I'm ready to teach. After 10 years, he was a genius by today's standard, by any day's standard. He was a genius, very smart, very knowledgeable, he had so much to offer. And he said, today, I'm going to start my own halaqah. He entered the masjid, he looked at his teacher, and he said, how can I do that? And he went and joined the halaqah of his teacher. And he continued on for 8 more years, up until his teacher passed away, Hamad, in which Abu Hanifa rahimahullah was roughly about the age of 40, in which he started his own halaqah. Ikhwan, look at the respect. Wallahi, thumma wallahi, this is the type of respect that we're lacking. Today, I've seen with my own eyes. No one told me. It's not stories that I read or heard. I've seen with my own eyes students of knowledge or people who attend classes. Then they say, okay, well, you know what? I've learned from you. I'm going to learn from someone else. They go somewhere else, and that person tells them, go question the teacher's aqidah, or go question his knowledge, or go question this, go question that. And I've seen students come and do takfir on their teacher, the one that taught them how to pray, the one that took them out of misguidance, the one that took them out of the slums. Khwani, where are we? Abu Hanifa rahimahullah stayed 18 years. He said, by Allah, between me, Abu Hanifa's house, and the house of Hamad, his teacher, 7 sikak or 8 sikak, there are like alleyways and streets between his house and the house of his teacher. Yeah? He said, by Allah, out of respect, I never extended my foot towards the house of my teacher. Can you imagine? You're at home, lying down, minding your own business. Yeah? MashaAllah, we extend our feet in any direction. Some people even, and it's makruh to do it towards the Qibla, they still do it. This man, out of respect for his teacher, he did not extend his foot, his leg, in the direction of his teacher's house, although there is about 7 or 8 streets or roads or sikat between them. Can you imagine the respect? Can you imagine how? And he wasn't just anybody. It was Abu Hanifa, rahimahullah. This is a type of respect that Abu Hanifa, rahimahullah, had towards his teacher. And he loved him genuinely, like you would not believe. To the point that he said, by Allah, I make dua for Hamad, my teacher, just like I make dua for my dad and mum. So So every time he'll make dua for his parents, he'll make dua for his teacher. Because his parents were the reason after Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to bring him into dunya. And his teacher, by the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, will be the reason to let him into Jannah. See the importance? See the difference? However, Ikhwani, Hamad was not his only teacher. He had many other teachers. Some were from Ahlul Bayt, the household of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Somebody like Muhammad al-Baqir and Abdullah ibn al-Hasan and Ja'far al-Sadiq and many others, Ikhwani, who either the direct lineage of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam through Fatima radiyallahu anha wa ardaha, or through from other sources that are close to them. And Ikhwani, he learned also from Sa'id ibn Jubair, Ata ibn Abi Rabah, Nafi' Mawla ibn Abi Umar, and many others. So Ikhwani, this man gained so much knowledge from many different sources. Many different sources, Ikhwani. Now, طيب, I want to focus on a little bit, not only about his knowledge, I want to talk about him as a person. And once again, Ikhwani, Abu Hanifa is an ocean. Yeah, I'm grabbing maybe a rose from every garden of Abu Hanifa. I want to talk about him as a person. What did he look like? Many times, Abu Hanifa said this, and Abu Hanifa argued with this, and Abu Hanifa's opinion is this. Let's talk about him as a man, as a human being. What did he look like? What was he doing? Rahimahullah was, of a tanned or a darker color. So you know how some people are white or light in color? He was more tanned or darker in color. And he has a slight white in him, but he's more darker than white. And he wasn't very tall, wasn't very short, as we're told. And he was actually very good looking. And in that there's a point. Not only was he good looking, he was wealthy due to his trade. And did he stop his business after gaining knowledge? No, he did not. He continued on to work during the day and gain knowledge after Asr and teach knowledge after Maghrib. So Ikhwani, there's a message to that. I've seen many students of knowledge or brothers who want to gain knowledge, and I've seen even some of my family members were like, we're going to just, this is dunya, we're not interested. You're going to gain knowledge and then you're going to qualify. You want to teach it. How are you going to eat? What, you want to sit there and teach people and expect them to pay you? Or you want to sit there and look at what's in people's hands? المؤمن القوي خير وأحب إلى الله من المؤمن الضعيف. As the Prophet had said, that the strong believer is more beloved and better in the eyesight of Allah than the weak believer. وفي كل خير, and in both there's goodness. So Ikhwani, a Muslim who's a da'iyah, who's a scholar, who's a teacher, who has his own income is a lot more stronger and a lot more favorable because he'll be able to teach with no problems. بإذن الله عز وجل. So Abu Hanifa rahimahullah was a businessman. He had his shop that he developed and it was a very successful trade, and he would work during the day and gain knowledge after Dhuhr, after Asr, and then teach after Maghrib. He had a halaqah, a gathering of knowledge that lasted for roughly, where he was part of it with Hamad, his teacher. He was also had his own halaqah for about 30 years. Even when he used to go to Hajj, he would take his students with him and they would do the halaqah as much as possible on the way and even during the days of Hajj. Can you imagine? This man was so dedicated, so consistent to knowledge that it was it's very challenging to compete with somebody like this, Ikhwani. He was neither, as we said, very tall or short. He wasn't beefy, he was actually very light in weight. And they attributed that not to poorness. He was wealthy, as we said. However, he had so much fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that he wasn't interested in dunya. He wasn't like when it comes to food and eating too much, etc. He wasn't interested. He would just eat just to keep him going. He wasn't interested in beefing up and taking and eating. And mashallah, it's something that we could learn from today, inshallah. He was, as we said, he had a good face, beautiful, very well groomed, presented, and he gave a good example of what a Muslim should be. He gave a good example of what a scholar should be. Gave a good example of what a Muslim businessman should be. He gave a good example of what a good student of knowledge and a teacher should look like. He also had amongst the best of manners that were unmatched with his enemies before his friends and students. Today, mashallah, the way we're programmed, whether in this, in Sydney, Australia, or many parts of the world, is that if I see my friends, I'm very nice to them. I joke with them, I laugh with them, etc. If I see strangers, I'm like, Or even worse, if I see somebody that looks at me funny, I look at him twice as funny. If somebody says a word to me, mashallah, I'll start laying words into him and potentially punches. Abu Hanifa rahimahullah was extremely generous with his manners before his money, towards his friends and companions, and even towards his enemies. Waliyadu billah. And he was able to win the hearts and the minds before teaching even knowledge. One of the things that were quite unique about him as well is that he was an extremely good worshipper of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this came by many accounts. Whether the people that lived with him at home, whether the people that traveled with him for Hajj, whether the people that did business with him, whether his students of knowledge. Ikhwani, this man used to be called Al-Watad, the pillar of the tent. Meaning that during the day, he's doing business, he's learning, he's teaching, he's educating the ummah, etc. At night, he would stand up in qiyam for endless hours, to the point that his neighbors and his family used to say, oh, he's just praying. He's like standing in prayer all night long. And all day long, he's between business and teaching. Some people used to say, when does he sleep? He hardly slept. He actually hardly slept. Radiyallahu anhu wa ardah. And just to say, so it didn't mean he didn't sleep or didn't eat. He only took what he needed. MashaAllah, today, our mattresses and our pillows and our beds, can give testimony on, mashallah, how much we give them justice, subhanallah. One of the challenges that Abu Hanifa rahimahullah faced, which many scholars you will see have also faced, however, Abu Hanifa had so many qualities that qualified him for this, is he had many people being envious of him, hasad. Envious of him, why? He was, as we said, he came from a wealthy family and he worked hard, so his wealth grew exponentially. Plus, he was extremely generous, so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blessed his wealth multiple times. So he was extremely wealthy. He was extremely, as we said, very well presented, very good looking, etc. And that is enough for people to have envy against you. Then he was very knowledgeable and very accepted. Many people, or some people, they gain knowledge, but nobody wants to listen to them. Nobody wants to actually go learn from them. Nobody wants to actually go and ask them a question. Nobody wants to actually talk to them or even give them salams because of their mannerism, because of their behavior, because of their ikhlas. Allahu a'lam. Abu Hanifa was the opposite. So many people would want to gain knowledge from him. So many people want to engage him. So many people. So ikhwani, when people give you attention, that also attracts hasad. So you have a wealthy, well-respected, good-looking, knowledgeable, pious man. So people had hasad against him. And he even said, إِنْ يَحْسِدُونِي فَإِنِّي غَيْرُ لَائِمُهُم. If they have hasad towards me, I can't blame them. قَبْلِي مِنَ النَّاسِ أَهْلُ الْفَضْلِ قَدْ حُسِدُوا. Before me, many people that are better than me, and people did hasad, did envy against them. فَدَامَ لِي وَلَهُمْ مَا دَامَ بِي وَبِهِمْ. So the thing that they have hasad against, whether it's my ilm, whether it's my good looks, whether it's my money, whether it's this and that, that they have envy towards me and towards them, or the worship of Allah, all these things stayed with us. However, all these people that have envy towards us, all it did was make them hurt more, and that's all. وَمَا تَأَكْثَرُنَا غَيْضًا بِمَا يَجِدُ. Basically he said that the majority of them died, and these people are just sitting there being envious. One of the other things that Abu Hanifa was also known for, ikhwani, other than his knowledge and taqwa, etc., and as we mentioned, that this ties in with the people that were envious of him, people, because he was so respectable, people in power were scared of him. So we're talking about, one of the Khulafa, Abu Ja'far al-Mansur, the Khalifa al-Abbasi. This man is a story on his own, but this man had a command of the police or command of the army by the name of At-Tusi. And this man, Tusi, it's like he was day and night plotting. How do I get this guy? How do I get Abu Hanifa in trouble? How can I execute Abu Hanifa? He just wants an excuse to execute Abu Hanifa. So one day, Abu Ja'far al-Mansur invites all the scholars of the city, and amongst them Abu Hanifa, and they have to go. So he attended. So Tusi said, today I'm going to dig a hole for Abu Hanifa that will never come out of it. So Tusi said to Abu Hanifa, Ya Abu Hanifa, a scholar, in front of everyone, a big gathering. Amir al-Mu'mineen, the Amir of the Mu'mineen, orders me to execute somebody. Do I execute these people or don't I? So Amir al-Mu'mineen is the head of the state, orders the head of the police, execute this man. Take him to execution. So now this man, At-Tusi, is the head of the police, is asking Abu Hanifa, do I listen to Amir al-Mu'mineen or should I decline? Should I not listen? Now there's a problem in that. It's like he asked him a loaded question. He asked him, should I execute anyone or not? If Abu Hanifa says, yes, execute, it means he rubber stamped and he approved potentially oppression that the Khalifa was enforcing. Because sometimes the Khalifa may not look at something, may not judge, may not look into something properly. He's basically, if he says yes, execute, it means he gives the Khalifa the permission to give this guy, execute anyone. It will be on the neck of Abu Hanifa. And if he says, no, don't execute, then he himself can get executed. And that's what the Tusi, this head of police, wanted to happen to Abu Hanifa. So Abu Hanifa just looked very calmly. He said, Ya Tusi, oh Tusi. He said, yes. He said, does the Khalifa order injustice, or is he a just man or an unjust man? These executions that he's ordering, are they just or are they unjust? So the man froze for a second and said, they're just. He said, so long that they're just, and you're saying that they're just, and you testified that they're just, there's nothing wrong with justice. But if they are unjust, then it's between you and Allah. See how he was able to twist and turn the question, and he took himself out and he put the man in the same hole that he tried to get him in. And Ikhwani, in that is an important quality. As a da'iyah, as a Muslim, as a student of knowledge, as a believer, we need to not overreact. Sometimes our enemies will dig holes for us. They'll booby trap something for us. They'll throw a few mines for us. And unfortunately, as Muslims, we go and we jump on the booby trap. MashaAllah, there's a landmine there. We don't just go around it. We literally jump on it as Muslims. Ikhwani, we need to be a lot more careful, a lot more intelligent in the way that we deal with our enemies. And unfortunately, some of these enemies are called Muhammad and Ahmad and Mahmoud and Mustafa and Khalid and Khadija. Some of these people are called Muslims by name. They are unfortunately people who are trying, to destroy the da'wah or affect the da'wah. Be intelligent about how you deal with them. So Abu Hanifa rahimahullah had many people, whether it's from the government, whether it's from Al-Khawarij. Al-Khawarij back then were extremely widespread. And some parts of the Muslim world, they grew. And the Khawarij, Ikhwani, just in a nutshell, are a sect. A very deviant sect, which found it very easy just to kill people for the smallest of doubts, the smallest of shubha. So for example, Abu Hanifa rahimahullah was teaching his students in the mosque, and then a group of Khawarij came with swords. So imagine we're sitting here minding our own business, we're talking about Abu Hanifa, and these guys come in with swords. And they say, Abu Hanifa, there's a janazah on the door. Now Abu Hanifa, Al-Khawarij, they used to consider any person with certain beliefs to be a kafir, and they should not be buried with the Muslims, and you cannot pray on them, etc. Not only that, if you don't say that he is a kafir, you become a kafir. And they'll even go one step further. They'll provide the service of removing your head for you. They'll come in and kill you. Yeah, mashallah, very top-notch service with these guys. So Abu Hanifa is teaching his students, and these guys are trying to bring in a dead body into the mosque so that they can pray janazah on him. Okay? Or pray janazah outside the mosque. Al-Muhim, there's a janazah. And these Khawarij are holding the sword saying, Abu Hanifa, this guy is one of those people who believed X, Y, Z, and we're not going to go into that. Basically, Al-Khawarij call them kuffar, but they're not kuffar, they're Muslims like us. So Abu Hanifa, they told him, What should we do with the janazah? Do we pray on it or not? Do we let them pray on it or not? So Abu Hanifa said, what's the question? So they told him, should we pray, let these people pray on this janazah or not? So Abu Hanifa said, is that person, is he a Christian? The Khawarij said, no, he's not a Christian. He said, he must be Jewish. He said, they told him, no, he's not Jewish. He must be, al-Wathaniyin, those who worship idols. They told him, no, he doesn't worship idols. They told him, well, then he must be Muslim, pray on him. So Ikhwani, it is an intelligent way, because these Khawarij were very narrow-minded. So he took them through the process of elimination, Ikhwani, and he walked them through the steps so that they understand, hey man, the guy wasn't Christian, wasn't Jew, wasn't an atheist, wasn't a Buddhist, wasn't anything else. He's a Muslim. Pray on him. Ikhwani. These simple Ikhwani ways and matters of dealing with people are very important. One of the things that we need to be mindful of as well about his personality, despite everything, he was extremely self-reliant. After relying on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, self-reliant on his businesses for financial support. And this is very important, especially to any student of knowledge or any scholar or any sheikh or any da'iyah that's listening to me. If you have the ability to be self-sufficient financially, do so. Do not rely on people, whether institutions, whether schools, whether mosques, etc., to financially support you, because then you become conflicted. You become conflicted, unfortunately. And this is something that some people have fallen into back then and even today. So, Ikhwani, whoever can have the ability to be financially independent, do so. One of the things that got him on the wrong side of the government back then, we mentioned earlier a name, Abu Ja'far al-Mansur, this Al-Khalifa al-Abbasi, who orchestrated a coup. So after the Prophet ﷺ and the four Khulafa, Abu Bakr, Umar, Uthman and Ali, a long story short, there was other Khulafa in between. Then Ad-Dawla al-Amawiyya, the Amawi state took place. So Banu Umayyah took over the Muslim world and had the Khalifa. And then, Ikhwani, many Muslims weren't too happy with the Khilafah, especially towards the end of the era. So Al-Khilafah al-Abbasiyya staged a coup during the time of Abu Hanifa, and they took over from the Amawis and they sort of eliminated the Amawis. Long story short, these guys are cousins, mind you, yeah? So, Banu Umayyah and Banu Abbas, Abdullah ibn Abbas, radiallahu anhu, the cousins of the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam, and Banu Umayyah are like, the people of Uthman bin Affan. So it's not like, it's like we're talking, the brother here and the brother there, so to speak. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's not like we're talking about people from, one part of the world and the other. They're literally cousins. And if you follow their lineages, they probably come from the same root. So, Ikhwani, long story short, Abu Hanifa witnessed that. And he wasn't happy with either Ad-Dawla al-Amawiyya, nor was he happy with Ad-Dawla al-Abbasiyya. So, Ikhwani, this is another thing as well. Some people say, no, don't get involved in politics. And I'm not here to talk about politics. I'm not here to tell you whether to vote or not, no. I'm just saying that a Muslim, da'i and a scholar has a positive impact on the society he is in and she is in. You cannot be deaf, dumb and blind in the society that you're in, within the boundaries of the Quran and the Sunnah. Okay, so long that you do not breach the Quran and the Sunnah, do what is necessary to have a positive impact on the society. And this is what Abu Hanifa radiallahu anhu did. Abu Ja'far al-Mansur, al-Khalifa al-Abbasi, al-Khalifa from the Abbasi state, now wants Abu Hanifa, due to his popularity, due to his influence, due to, he's like a celebrity, he's got thousands of students, etc. Now he wants to give him a very difficult position. It's called Qadi al-Quda. Qadi al-Quda, Ikhwani, is a person. There are Muslim judges, throughout the land. There'll be a judge here and a judge there and a judge there. And a judge, Ikhwani, basically, if a husband and wife have a fight and they need the judge to rule between them, a brother and a sister, a thief, somebody stole, somebody did something, somebody killed, etc. Anything to do with Qada goes to the judge. Just like today, like today in Australia, there are Australian judges. Back then, there were Muslim judges amongst the land. However, these guys all needed to report to, a mastermind, a big qadi. He's the judge of the judges. So now Abu Ja'far al-Mansur wants to make Abu Hanifa the qadi of the judge of the judges. So Abu Hanifa declined. So he told him, you have to do it. He told him, I don't want to do it. It's conflicting. He told him why. He said, if I rule a ruling and you don't like it, are you going to enforce my ruling or your ruling? He said, no. The Abu Ja'far said, the Khalif said, of course I'm going to enforce my ruling. He said, then you're going to compromise my deen. I will not compromise my deen for anyone. And this is important, ikhwani. This is important. Many times as Muslims, we compromise our deen for a boss, for a neighbor, for a wife, for our children, for even our own desires. Abu Hanifa was telling one of the most powerful men on the face of the planet, no, I will not compromise my deen. Ikhwani, this man wasn't just about knowledge. This man took a stance and he knew what the consequences were. He was actually jailed and whipped numerously so he could become the judge of the judges, and he refused. Today, ikhwani, wallahi, me and you, we miss out on Fajr because we're a bit tired. A brother says to us a word, we stop going to our mosque. We go out and we find our shoes, not stolen, but somebody moved them. And we go, there's no way I'm coming to this lesson again. We go to the car park and somebody blocked us in, or somebody parked very close to us, made it slightly inconvenient for us. We'll go, no way I'm going back to these guys. Khwani, Abu Hanifa was being whipped upon whipped, and he still held on to his position because he did not want to compromise his deen. The take-home message, do not compromise your deen no matter what the consequences are. So he was jailed and he was tortured. Whipping, being excluded. Remember, this isn't a man who grew up in the slums, grew up in a very wealthy family. Now he's in a jail cell. He ate the best, comfortable food, comfortable clothing, very rich, so he wore very nice clothing, etc. Now he's wearing the worst. He's not even being fed, no students. He was very pampered outside jail. Now he's in jail. And he's been tortured and whipped daily. So he could actually compromise his deen, and he refused to do so, ikhwani. And he was very patient. Once he was hit 110 whips. What's the punishment of a person who commits zina? 80 lashes. This man was given more lashes than a zani, than a person who commits zina. Can you imagine? Ikhwani, don't think that knowledge came to us on, people who had little iPads and they were reading off them. Ikhwani, knowledge came to us on a road of blood. Knowledge, when they say, Imam Abu Hanifa, or the Hanafi school of thought says this, or the Shafi'i school of thought says that, or Imam Malik says this in the Masala, and then you think, but I say this. Akhi, wallah, just before you say what you want to say, respect what these men have said, because it came through hardship. They sacrificed. They stood firm on the haqq. They stood firm on the principles, ikhwani. Now, moving forward, ikhwani, I just want to talk about a few things. One of them, and very quickly, and I'm mindful of time, one of them is something called Masadir Abi Hanifa. Masadir Abi Hanifa, the sources in which he used to establish the foundation of his madhab. And you'll find that there are some, a lot of the scholars, or the major schools of thought have overlapping sources, and some sources that they prioritize before the other. And this is why sometimes you find something is more preferred in one madhab than the other. And we're not talking about the mains. None of the madhahib say, it's sunnah to pray asr. No, habibi, it's fard to pray asr. We're not talking about things like that. However, some of the minute parts of fiqh, there are differences of opinion, etc. And there's fusha in it. There's mercy in the ummah with those, and we'll talk about that later, inshallah. However, where does Abu Hanifa get his knowledge from? Where does he get his priorities in knowledge of fiqh from? What does Imam Malik, Ahmad bin Hanbal, etc.? Abu Hanifa, rahimahullah, ikhwani, had seven stages of giving a fatwa. Or his sources were 7 sources, and based on them he gave his fatwa. The first thing is the Quran. So if somebody came and asked him something, or if he was doing a study on, is it halal or haram to use a microphone? Is it halal or haram to use a phone? Is it haram to use a tissue box? Is it haram to use lights? Whatever it is, anything new or anything old, he went to the Quran. If the Quran had something to talk about it, so be it. If not, it didn't. He went to what? Who knows? What's the next source? Al-Hadith or Al-Sunnah. Al-Kitab thumma Al-Sunnah or Al-Hadith. Same thing. يعني, or slightly different, but yeah, we'll say al-kitab thumma sunnah. If you went through the sunnah, the sayings of the Prophet, the actions of the Prophet, the agreements of the Prophet, etc., etc. Anything to do with the Sunnah, he had the Quran, then the Sunnah. If something wasn't in the Quran, wasn't in the Sunnah, he went to something called Aqwal al-Sahaba. Aqwal al-Sahaba, ikhwani, is what the companions practiced. And the companions, ikhwani, were those, a definition of a companion, by definition, is a person who believed in the Prophet, sallallahu alayhi wasallam, was a Muslim at the time that the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam was alive, and he saw the Prophet and interacted with him and died as a Muslim. So if a person fit that criteria and that person said something about a matter, about a mas'ala, Abu Hanifa took it after the Quran and the Sunnah. Qawlu Sahaba. Then he had something called al-ijma'. Al-ijma', ikhwani, is when all the scholars that are living at a particular time or era talk about a mas'ala and give a fatwa on it, and they agree on it. For example, something new that came up, you probably all heard of something called cryptocurrency. Yeah? Who's heard of cryptocurrency? Bitcoin and all those coins are floating around. Currently, does anyone know whether we have ijma' or no ijma' on cryptocurrency, whether it's halal or haram? Who knows? No ijma'. Thank you very much. Ijma' is that all the scholars, and when I say scholars, we're talking about scholars, yeah? We're not talking about some of our TikTok brothers out there, may Allah reward them, who, may Allah accept from them. We are talking about scholars in Islamic fiqh, who have the ability to speak, who have the right to give a fatwa in a matter, give an opinion. All these scholars, when they say, if they all say, yes, cryptocurrency is accepted, then something, it's rubber stamped or locked in as al-ijma'. Okay? Abu Hanifa had that as the next source. Then he had something called al-qiyas. Al-qiyas, ikhwani, if we have a mas'ala that we know its hukum and we know its certain descriptions of it, etc. We have a mas'ala that it has similar qualities to the first mas'ala, but we don't know its hukum. ونلحق الثانية بالأولى نلحق الفرع بالأصل. We allow we let the subsidiary follow the source, etc. You'll learn this in usul fiqh. Then he had al-qiyas. Then he had something called al-istihsan. And very quickly he had also something called al-urf. So ikhwani, Abu Hanifa, when somebody says, Abu Hanifa said this, is there a good opinion? Is it not a good opinion? Ikhwani, this is his methodology. There's a method. There's a process. There was it was fine-tuned how his fatwa came, how he gave his fatwa, how he gave his mas'ala, how he gave his fiqh. There is a strong foundation for this establishment. It wasn't just, you know what, I'm feeling a bit snappy today, it's haram. Or I'm feeling a bit, fetish today, let's call it halal. It wasn't like that, ikhwani. And unfortunately, some people would accuse Abu Hanifa or Imam Malik or Ahmad bin Hanbal or Shafi'i of doing things like this wrongfully. And you'll be asked about it on the Day of Judgment. It doesn't mean that everything that Abu Hanifa or the other three madhahib have said is correct or accurate, but to the best of their knowledge, to the best of their ability at that time, there's no questions about it. Bi-idhnillah azza wa jal. طيب, very quickly, ikhwani, in the very few moments I have left, we're going to talk about some of his students very quickly. His main student, and this is important. And important, ikhwani, for you as a student, and also for you when you become a future teacher. He had a man by the name of Abu Yusuf, Al-Imam Abu Yusuf, هو يعقوب بن إبراهيم بن حبيب الأنصاري نسبا والكوفي منشأ وتعلما ومقاما. So this man was from the Ansar, his origins are from the Ansar, the people of Medina. Okay? However, he was born in Kufa in northern Iraq. He was raised in northern Iraq. He became one of the northern Iraqis, and he grew up there as one of the students of knowledge there. And Abu Hanifa, rahimahullah, he noticed that this man was very sharp, very smart, very intelligent, very strong in his knowledge, very pious, and he had so many beautiful qualities, but he was poor. He didn't have money. And sometimes, he would need to leave the lesson so he can work, so he could support his family. So Abu Hanifa was a wealthy man. He said, listen, where do you disappear? Why do you leave us? He said, my teacher, I have to go and support my family. My family needs, I need to work. So he told him, listen, I'll look after your financial needs. Stay in the lesson, stay in the class. Why, ikhwani? Abu Hanifa rahimahullah wasn't just about building a name for himself. It was about passing on the knowledge. And when he found that this man was intelligent, smart, sincere, and he had a bright future ahead of him, but he had an obstacle, he removed the obstacle so he could invest in him, so he can pass on the knowledge that he has to the Ummah of Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam. And by Allah, ikhwani, and I believe due to sincerity, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala spread the knowledge for Abu Hanifa due to this man. One of the main pillars that was able to spread the knowledge of Abu Hanifa is this man. Because Abu Yusuf rahimahullah became one of the great scholars of al-Dawla al-Abbasiyya, al-Khilafah al-Abbasiyya, the Khilafah Abbas, al-Khilafah al-Abbasiyya, which is the Abbasi Khilafah. And he wrote many books, and he doctrinized or made the fiqh of Abu Hanifa mandatory over all the Muslim countries, all the way from the borders of China. We're talking about Afghanistan, Pakistan, India, Turkmenistan, all those countries, spreading all the way from the east all the way to the west. Yeah, we're practicing al-fiqh al-Hanafi. Mandatory. There's no choice. This is from the High Council of Fiqh from Baghdad at that time. Abu Ja'far al-Mansur built Baghdad, and it was from Baghdad. Everybody had to practice fiqh from this madhab, from the student of Abu Hanifa, which was called Abu Yusuf rahimahullah. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has blessed him, and this man was a pious man and a very knowledgeable man as well. Another man by the name of Muhammad ibn al-Hasan al-Shaybani rahimahullah, and also he was one of the great students of knowledge of Abu Hanifa, and also one of the great scholars of the Ummah after that. And then last but not least, rahimahullah, al-Imam Zufar. And what's interesting is that this Imam was before the other two, was before Muhammad and before Abu Yusuf. However, he died young. So this man joined Abu Hanifa's circle before the other two. However, he died young, and also he didn't have, whilst he was sincere, intelligent, etc., he wasn't at that level of the other two. Mind you, the halaqah that Abu Hanifa had used to have roughly 40 main students in the first line. And then there'll be like maybe 100 students in the second line, and then there'll be thousands of people behind them. Okay? So the main students will be around Abu Hanifa. And they're the people who are allowed to talk in class. Everybody else was just paying attention. These 40 people in the main class were people, not only students of knowledge. Sometimes they needed a fatwa about, I still remember once they were talking about painting. Or a sibara, painting and colors and painting, etc. So Abu Hanifa commissioned one of his students, Abu Yusuf, I believe it was, to go and work as a painter and interact with painters for about 3-4 weeks. And then come back and report to us. What do these guys do? What terms do they do? What equipment do they use? What do they paint with? How much do they charge? So that when somebody asks us a question about painting, we actually know what we're talking about. If there was a question about medical procedures, whatever, they'll bring in the equivalent of a doctor back then. If there's something about currency, they'll bring in somebody from currency. If there was something about medicine, there was something about food, there was something about buying and selling, they'll bring buyers and sellers, businessmen, etc. So Ikhwani, Abu Hanifa wasn't just this arrogant man who decided to dictate what his fiqh would say. He actually had like a school of scholars, and he would get expertise and experts in the field to teach and to give advice. One of his other students is Abdullah ibn al-Mubarak rahimahullah, and he is one of the pious men of the Ummah and one of the scholars of the Ummah. Last but not least, Ikhwani, we finish off by where is his fiqh established, or where is his fiqh practiced today, this man. This man, Ikhwani, many scholars, not only Hanafi schools of scholars, even non-Hanafi schools of scholars, and you find this is unique about Abu Hanifa, like Imam Malik and other scholars, Ahmad bin Hanbal rahimahullah, many of them said, ينبغي لكل مسلم أن يدعو لأبي حنيفة في كل صلاة. That every Muslim should make dua for Abu Hanifa in every prayer. Because he taught people who ended up teaching the majority of the other scholars. So literally, even if a person is not on the Hanafi school of thought, if you're Hanbali or Shafi'i or Maliki, etc., he benefited one way or another from the teachings of this man. He systemized knowledge, he documented knowledge, etc. His madhab today is practiced, as we mentioned earlier, in Turkey and parts of towards Russia and the Balkans, etc. In the stands, in Chechnya, in Afghanistan, in Pakistan, India, parts of Persia, parts of Iran, Al-Ahwaz, Arabia, parts of it, not all of it. Bilad al-Sham, Syria, Lebanon, Iraq, parts of Palestine, Jordan, parts of Yemen, parts of Bahrain, parts of Tunis, parts of Algeria, and the list goes on. Can you imagine Muslims nearly 1400 years later or 1300 years later are still worshipping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through the knowledge that this man made simple for them and provided for them through for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. How did he die? As we said, there was a man by the name of Abu Ja'far al-Mansur from the Abbasi Khilafah who sort of had it in for this man, had it in for Abu Hanifa. So Abu Hanifa was in and out of jail. Yeah? Not because he was drinking and driving, not because he was stealing, not because he was doing an NDIS thing and he was stealing money from the government. He was simply worshipping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and teaching knowledge and refusing to cooperate with a tyrant government or a tyrant man in a government. And he didn't want to compromise his deen. And it was a principle-based decision. So he was being tortured, he was in and out of jail, and then the last sort of stretch for him at the age of 70, he passed away. He was out of jail, but he was not allowed to teach, not allowed to be asked questions or answer. No, khalas. He will be isolated and people are not allowed to learn from him, etc. And he died, rahimahullah. He wasn't even allowed to leave his house at some stages, and that's when he passed away, rahimahullah. I'm going to mention one quote of Abu Hanifa. With this we finish. Rahimahullah, Zufar ibn al-Hudayl said that Imam Abu Hanifa rahimahullah had said, من لم يمنعه العلم عن محارم الله تعالى ولم يحجزه عن معاصي الله تعالى فهو من الخاسرين. The person, this is what Abu Hanifa had said, the person that has knowledge, it doesn't mean you have to be a scholar, you have knowledge over this matter. Whether drinking alcohol, there's no alcohol by the way, it's water, but let's say it's haram, and your knowledge that this is alcohol and it's haram is not stopping you from drinking it, or looking at haram, wherever. You have knowledge in something and you still go against it. وَلَمْ يَحْجِزُ عَنْ مَعَاصِ اللَّهِ تَعَالَى. Your knowledge did not stop you or prevent you from disobedience of Allah. فَهُوَ مِنَ الْخَاسِرِينَ. Verily this person, man or woman, is amongst the losers. The losers in the dunya and the losers in the akhirah. Meaning that if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blessed you with knowledge, it is your obligation to apply it. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He has mercy on our Imam, Al-Imam Abi Hanifa rahimahullah. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He allows us to benefit from His knowledge, that we learn His knowledge, that we pass it on, and we are amongst those who listen, understand and implement. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala ali Muhammad kama sallaita ala Ibrahim wa ala ali Ibrahim wa barik ala Muhammadin wa ala ali Muhammad kama barakta ala Ibrahim wa ala ali Ibrahim. Allahumma hadina fi man hadayt wa afina fi man afayt wa tawallana fi man tawallayt wa barik lana fi ma atayt wa qina wasrif anna sharra ma qadayt fa innaka taqdi wa la yuqda alayk. وصلى الله على محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. جزاكم الله خير. Inshallah next week we'll be with Al-Imam Malik rahimahullah ta'ala. Same time, same place. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.